Welcome to Think Your Way Up with Dr. Jinneh, the only space in the world where neuroscience, executive leadership, and purpose-driven principles collide to help you disrupt your dysfunctional thoughts and do life and business better. I'm Dr. Jinneh, the friend in your head who will challenge you each week to evict your mental chatter, eliminate your yo-yo thinking, and help you attain the clarity and tools to think up. So let's disrupt the mental chatter together because your next breakthrough starts now. Welcome to Think Your Way Up. Hey, Think Up friend. Welcome to another episode of Think Your Way Up with Dr. Jinneh. I'm your host and the friend in your head that's helping you to create the life and business that you desire. So in today's show, we are talking all about challenges and setbacks because, baby, as I shared with you before, it has been a rough start for me. But what I know is that just because something starts off rough doesn't mean that it's the end of the story. Now, I want to make sure that I'm level setting and that I'm establishing a foundation right now about why I'm telling you this now versus later. I know that I'm going to come out of this. I know that I will come out of this. I know that this is only temporary. It's only a part of this thing called life that we have to go through. And as I shared with you before, one of the things that I've always admired people were the people who could talk about being in the middle and show me how to walk in the middle versus when they're on the other side. So it's one thing to be on the other side of something and you're telling me about what you did and how was it, but it's another thing when you're actively in it. And now you're showing me what you're doing, how you're fighting to get out, how you are establishing a firmer foundation. So I want to be honest. I want to be transparent. I want to live and lead out loud. So I am sharing with you that I'm in the middle, that I've had so many challenges and setbacks, but I'm not allowing them to stop me because a rough start doesn't mean a rough finish. I mean, it's not even about how you start. If we're honest, it's about how you choose to finish. And if you're like me, 2025 may not have started how we planned. I mean, no one imagined and thought about all the things that we would have to endure and face. But guess what? Every great comeback story, it always, with an emphasis on always, starts with a setback. So if you've been feeling like things aren't going your way, if you hit roadblocks, if you're questioning whether you should keep going or how to keep going, or how do you find the strength, how do you find the endurance, then I'm talking to you today. And if you're on the other side of that and you're like, hey, it is what it is, like I got it, I'm okay, then I want to still talk to you because I want to make sure that you have the mental stamina and the mental strength, enough of that stored in your bank. Because this may not be your season, but you may be walking into a season. I remember hearing a pastor say years ago that there's three types of people. There's somebody who's going through a storm, somebody who's coming out of a storm, or somebody who's about to go in it. Like that's how life works. It's either you're going through it, coming out of it, or about to go in it. And one of the things that I don't think that I was truly prepared for in life was to learn how to expect and prepare for setbacks and challenges. Like you hear about it, people talk about it. People talk about the trials and challenges of marriage. They talk about the trials and challenges of parenting. They talk about the trials and challenges of being a career professional, of being an entrepreneur, of being a parent. Like they talk about it. Like we even hear it at church. There's going to be trials and tribulations. Okay, but how do I prepare for it? How do I manage the middle? How do I come out of it? And that's the space where I want to make sure that I am planting some seeds and talking us all through it, even myself in this space. So today we're going to talk about how do you turn those obstacles into opportunities when you're in the middle of it, when you're in it. How do you hear that? How do you see it? How do you actually do it? And of course, I got to give you some science behind resilience because it's going to blow your mind. And then we're going to talk about what do you do when you feel like quitting? When you feel like throwing in the towel, like shutting it all down, walking away from everything. How do you keep going? So that's the focus for today. So the first thing that I want to make sure that we are clear on is that setbacks are actually setups for growth. Like, they are not signs to stop. They're not signs that you're on the wrong path. They're not signs that you've missed the message, you've missed the mission, you've missed the calling from God. Like, they are signs that show you that you're on the right path. Like, if you keep going, you're going to grow through this. And there's some signs that really supports this notion of what I'm teaching you today. So raise your hand, students. If you're in the room with me, just pretend you are. Raise your hand. How many of you have heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD? If you were in a row with me, probably every hand. Everybody's heard of PTSD. But how many of you have heard of PTG, post-traumatic growth theory? Not a single hand goes up every time I ask this question. So two psychologists, Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, they did a study and they found that people who experience challenges often emerge stronger, more confident, and more purpose-driven. And that's what they call post-traumatic growth. They believe in their findings that your struggles actually create personal transformation. So hold up, Dr. J. You're telling me the people who experience challenges, they're going to come out stronger, more confident, and more purpose-driven because they're going to be transformed? And the answer is yes. If they choose it, though, if they choose it. So there's the deal. You can go through it and you can be complaining and whining and disappointed and frustrated, and you're going to stay exactly where you are. But if you start to reframe and start to think about how is this helping you? How is this positioning you? How is this propelling you? How can you grow from this? How can you learn from this? What is the challenge teaching you? What's the next right move? What are the lessons you can learn? If you can start thinking about it like that, you better believe it. You are going to go through a tremendous personal transformation. Because if you think about it, the people who are succeeding in life, they aren't the ones that have never struggled. In fact, it's the opposite. They're the ones that have gone through some of the greatest hardships, failures, and obstacles, but they just don't let the struggle define them. So years ago, my son was little, and we used to watch the NFL draft. Like, I love it. I still watch it to this day. I love hearing the stories. I love hearing how some of the young men that were never expected to be drafted and how now they're there. Maybe they're going high, or maybe they're going in the last round, but their name was called. I love hearing how they have gone through such tremendous setbacks in life, but they allowed that to fuel them. And I remember sitting with my son, he's probably maybe 6 or 7, and we were watching this together. And he said, wow, he's like, everybody has a hardship story. And I said, they do. And he's like, maybe I won't be successful because I don't have a hardship story. Like, what's going to be my story? And I remember talking to him about it because, you know, we hear the hardships and nobody wants to go through hardship, but there's beauty on the other side of that if we keep going. And I remember telling him that nobody creates a hardship. Nobody wants a hardship. Like, sometimes life is just handed to us in a way to where we have to deal. We have to play the cards that we've been dealt with. So it's not that you want to go out and you want to create a hardship, but what you want to do is that you want to see every setback in life as an opportunity and as a setup for your success. And I said, your story may not look like their story, but I promise you, baby, God is developing and he's crafting a story within you. And of course, at 6 and 7, you don't realize it, but as he continued to go on, he saw exactly what I was talking about, of him being cut from his high school team, of him not playing, being the third string, of him being on varsity, then moving back down to junior varsity, of him not playing, of transferring schools and having a breakout season and getting recruited, but getting recruited late because he bloomed late or he had an opportunity late. And then him going into a school, not having the best outcome at the school, coming home for a semester, choosing another school in California, and then a week before realizing that that wasn't the best place. And then again, not knowing exactly where I'm supposed to go, how God is going to do this, how do I keep playing? And then, like a ram in a bush, a school calls him and he goes there 2 days later. And going into a new team, supposed to be on the bench, supposed to not be getting a lot of playing time, but actually starting. So what looked like a setback to him was a setup. But the things that he had to realize in this season, he had to start asking himself, like, what am I learning? How am I going to grow through this? Like, what is this teaching me? How is this like this may be basketball, but what's the lesson that I need to apply and I need to learn in life? Because if I want to be successful, I'm going to go through struggles. I'm going to go through hardships. I'm going to go through these trials and tribulations, but I can't let them define me. I define, I create the story that's in front of me. So, him learning this at 19 has been amazing for me to watch because he's taught me some things. He's taught me really what resilience looks like and how to really strengthen my resilience mindset. So, resilience isn't about avoiding challenges. It's not. It's about how you bounce back from them. Like, it's about how do you reframe things in life? Like, you don't see a loss, but you see a lesson. How do you reframe it and how do you learn from it? It's about taking action every day, even if you don't know it's going to work, even when you don't feel ready, even when you don't know what the next thing should be. It's about doing it. And it's about being around people that are going to push you to do it. So that's what I learned from him. I learned that I can't look at things as losses. I have to see everything as a lesson. Like, what can I learn from this? I have to make sure that I'm taking action every single day because that's what's going to reduce the fear and build the confidence when we're honest about it. And then it's making sure that I have a group of people that believe in me. Like, I was the person in his ear. And this is why it's so important to have a community of people because even when he didn't believe, and even if when I didn't believe for him, I was able to glean onto my faith. And sometimes you need people to see things and to believe things for you when you can't do it. Like, you need to be able to borrow somebody's faith when your faith is diminishing. This is why you got to have people in your corner. You got to have people that can believe and that can speak things into you. So the biggest shift that I made, and then we'll talk about what do you do when you feel like quitting, is I started seeing how every problem carries an ounce of potential. Like, every problem carries an ounce of potential. And when you start looking at problems as potential, then you start developing a solution-oriented mindset that can move you now into solutions. So you remember, we talked about in a previous episode how your brain follows your word and how you have the ability to train your brain how to think, how to respond. Well, the same thing here. If you start looking at problems as, okay, what's the potential? What can I learn? What is this teaching me? What's on the other side of this? What is God developing in me? What is God showing me? How is God shaping me? If you can start seeing that, then it moves it from a problem and something stressful into an opportunity. And that's the space that we want to be in. So we want to see setbacks as setups and not stopping points. We don't want to ever stop. So what do you do when you feel like quitting? Because let's be real, I have wanted to quit more days in this season than ever before. I have contemplated what it would look like if I went back into the corporate space. I came out because God told me to come out in 2016, but I'm like, what would it look like if I went back in? Like, maybe God is saying this season's up because this is challenging, this is hard, and you go back in. Like, what would it look like if I just had a regular job where I could go and do regular things at work? I can show up at work, do my job, and go home. Like, that's me thinking, even though my life has never been like that. What would it look like if I could get a steady paycheck, the first and the 15th, with benefits, with a corporate card, flying first class, going into the lounges at the airport, with the corporate card, all the corporate perks? What would that look and feel like? And I've contemplated quitting. I've contemplated walking out. I've contemplated looking for a job and calling my contacts and saying, hey, who has work right now? I've contemplated, like, why am I doing this? Even questioning God, like, God, did I miss it? Because this is so hard. Like, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It is hard. It's going to require everything from you. It's going to test everything out of you. But I realized I didn't come this far to quit. I didn't come this far to tap out. Like, quitting is not in my DNA. So instead of quitting, what I have done is these 3 things, and I want to share them with you. I may stop for a moment, like press pause, but I don't quit. And neither can you. We can pause the process. We can pause the work that we're doing, but you can't quit. Pause it, reset, regroup, because that's really part of the process. Rest is a part of the process. Being able to know when you need to tap out, when you need to pause, when you need to be silent for a moment, but you can't quit. You can't completely abandon the mission. You can't abort the process. But you do have to pause because when we pause, it prevents our burnout. I also have to go back, which is the second thing. I have to remember my why. Like, why did I start this? What is the vision? What's the impact? I started this company to save myself. Think Up was never for other people. It was for me. It was for me at 28 years old, finally stepping into a space where I was willing to talk about and share my story of living with debilitating depression. It was me finally stepping out and sharing how it felt holding my mother's hand when she took her last breath. It was me being open and willing to share how it was failing out of college and losing all of my scholarships and having a 1.9 GPA and being placed on academic probation, threatened to be sent home by the university. But the problem with all of that is that I didn't have a home to go to. Think Up was never for anybody else. It was for me. It was for me to save my own life. It wasn't about a brand. It wasn't about a business. It wasn't about this motivational movement or moment. It was about how do I silence these suicidal thoughts? How do I diminish the words of the enemy? How do I make sure that God's voice is louder than the voices that I'm hearing that's telling me that it's not going to get better, to take myself out, that nothing's going to change, that this is what I deserve? Like, how do I silence the chatter and create what I want in my mind first? That's my why. How do I save me? And when I started telling my story and sharing the story, then people started saying, you've helped me. You've saved my life. You have given me another reason to push. You have showed me how I can keep going. So then it became, okay, it's not just me, it's them too. Like, how do I help them? How do I, like, okay, we're in this together. And even the moment that I'm sitting in now, I pray that one person will listen to the shows that God has encouraged me to drop and share. I pray that one person is transformed by this. But let me just be real clear. I'm not doing this for the people. I'm doing this for the purpose. I'm doing this because I believe that we don't just leave a legacy, but we live a legacy. And one day, the work that I do here will be a memory. It'll just be a moment in time. But what will my kids have? We talk about legacy. We talk about inheritance. We talk about all these things. And I want to leave my kids a lot of money. I do. And I will. I am. But I also want to leave them incredible words of wisdom. So if these episodes never get opened by anyone other than my kids, I'm okay with that. But I want them to know about the life that I lived. I want them to know that when times get hard, that they can press on. I want them to know what type of woman and mother I was. I want them to hear my words and to hear the passion that I had for becoming a better version of myself, a better mom for them, and a better daughter of God. So I can't quit because my obedience is tied to my children's destiny, and neither can you. You may get overwhelmed. You may get exhausted. You can pause, but you can't quit. Remember your why. Remember why you're here. And don't focus on the big goals. Like, don't get so caught up in success and the goal and the numbers and the metrics and the likes and the followers and the downloads. Those things don't matter. What matters is your consistency. What matters is, are you willing to do the small things over and over and over? Because that's what builds momentum. It's the daily actions. And as you've heard me say before, success I got the degrees. I got the accolades. I got that stuff. What matters the most to me right now in this season is my consistent progress. Can I keep going when I want to quit? Will I show up and talk to the people in this moment when I've been bawling my eyes out? Will I still give God the glory even though the light, the vision, and dream don't look and feel like the promise? Can I still praise God in the valley? This is the middle, and the middle part is the hardest, but the middle is also right before the breakthrough. So I want you to DM me. I do. If you listen to this, send me a DM. Promise me this is your cost of admission that you're going to send me one challenge that you're pushing through right now. DM me, tag me, because I want to support you. I want to help you push. We can't quit. We can't give in. We got to keep going. I know that we can do it. I know that you can do it. I believe in you. So here's the question that I have today. Let's see who this incredible person is from. This is from, oh, here we go. This is from Danielle. Danielle lives in Houston, Texas. Shout out H-Town. Danielle says, I've invested thousands in coaching. I have multiple degrees. I've been successful in my job, but I still can't forge ahead as an entrepreneur. Dr. J, what advice do you have for me? Because I need help. I got to figure out how to bounce back after business failure after failure after failure. Danielle, thank you so much, my friend. First thing I want you to do is take a deep breath, girl, and hear me when I say this. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not a failure. Your setbacks do not and will not define you. Entrepreneurship is a different game. So many brilliant, educated, and driven people, they struggle with the transition and in the transition from employee to entrepreneur, not because they aren't capable, but because business success, it requires a different mindset. Like this is a mental game. This isn't just about showing up to work, having the strategy, having the vision, having the operation plan, having the resources. Like entrepreneurship, it requires a different mindset. It requires a higher level of risk strategy and a different type of strategy. So let's break this down for a minute. The fact that you've invested in yourself and you built a strong foundation is not a failure. That's proof of your commitment. You already win. You are already ahead. But right now, you're in the middle. And it's that middle space that can either keep us moving forward or it can block us from moving. So we got to first identify what are those roadblocks and fix them. But we got to start with our mind. So one of the biggest things that many people struggle with, especially my entrepreneurs, my new entrepreneurs, is that they label a temporary setback as a permanent failure. But let's look at it. It's not. Just because you're struggling in this season, just because things are challenging in this season, does not mean that you are a failure. It is not a permanent failure. It is only temporary. But one of the biggest mistakes is that we label this as a permanent failure. So if we look at the signs, if you just go to the data again, studies show that 90% of startups fail. 90%. So 90% of people, when they start a company, they're going to fail. But 80% of those entrepreneurs who try again succeed on their second attempt. So their first business idea may be a wash. It may not work. But 80% of them win the second time they do it. That's 8 out of 10. That's high numbers. 8 out of 10 people succeed when they try again. We also know that failure, this is why failure is mentally and physically draining. We know that research shows us that failure triggers the same brain activity as physical pain. So your brain processes failure as a threat, which is why it feels so personal and it feels so hard and it feels so heavy to us when we're going through it, because it triggers the same brain activity as physical pain. Like failure, the thought of failure, being in a position of failure. We feel physically pained in that space because it's triggering the same part of the brain. But here's the key. Successful entrepreneurs, the people that we all admire, they don't avoid failure. They take the lessons from it and they apply it. So ask yourself, what did this experience teach me? Because there's some things that entrepreneurship can teach you that your job could never, that a course could never, a program could never, a degree could never, a certification could never. So you have to ask yourself, like, what did this experience teach me that I could only learn through this? And then the second thing is, like, for me, I know right now it's mindset and strategy where I'm struggling. So the second thing you have to do is identify what's the real block. Is it mindset or strategy? Most people don't fail in business because they lack knowledge or skills. They fail because A, they're either waiting for the perfect moment and that perfect moment doesn't exist. B, they're operating with an employee mindset in an entrepreneur's world and that doesn't exist. And then they're afraid to pivot. So then that of being afraid to pivot leads to failure. So I want you to do an audit. If it's fear, then you just got to start taking small, messy action every single day. Clarity comes from doing, not by overthinking. You just got to get in there. You got to be messy. You just got to do it. Like, you just got to do it. 2, if it's strategy. So if it's fear, just got to get that messy part of it and just got to do it. If it's like a strategy, I want you to get clear on what's the problem you solve and how do you solve it and who do you serve, and then develop a strategy from it. Like, what can you do? Use ChatGPT. Develop a strategy. What is my strategy over the next 12 weeks? I actually have a business operation plan. I'll drop the link on this episode where I show you how I map out my entire year, my entire quarter, my entire month, my entire week, my entire day, like what I do. It's my own personal business operation plan that I've turned into a template, and it is only $20.25 if you want to grab it. So I'll drop the link below with the operation plan. So if it's a lack of strategy, that's fixable. You just got to get a strategy and you got to execute. And if it's self-doubt, you just got to recognize that entrepreneurship, it requires a new identity shift. Like, you're a business owner. You got to step into that power. You got to step into power. That's a business owner. I'm the overseer. I am the visionary. I'm sometimes the integrator. I have to put out fires, identify smoke, and keep everything moving all at the same time. So it's just building up the resiliency muscle. So I want you to keep going. I want you to believe it. One person who comes to mind who has spoken about this is Sarah Blakely. She's the founder of Spanx. And Sarah, she shared in an interview how she failed multiple times. So if you think that Spanx is a $1 billion brand, $1 billion company. And Sarah was turned down by investors. Department stores didn't want to carry her product. Like, she just had a rough start. But for her, she said one of the things that she did, she looked at this as data collection. And she adjusted her approach every single time. So every time she got a no, it's like data collection. Okay, they said no because of this. Let me adjust. And she kept adjusting and she kept adjusting and kept adjusting and kept adjusting until she succeeded. So this failure that you're feeling, it's not a time to stop. It's not a time to doubt. It's not like you're not at the end of the road. It is recalibration. You just got to figure out what adjustments you need to make. I hope this helps. Let me know what you need. And everybody else, I want you all to let me know what challenge you're facing, because I want to support you. I want to help you. So I think a tip for today, it's real simple, y'all. Your failure isn't a stop sign. It's a recalibration where you can figure out, what do I need? How do I need it? There's seasons to where we have to calibrate, and then there's seasons where we are going to celebrate. Most of the calibration that we're going to find ourselves in is when we're in the middle. And the middle is the hardest part. Getting started, we have momentum. And at the latter part of the journey, we're winning, we've learned lessons. But it's the middle. The middle is messy. The middle is hard. The middle is tedious. The middle is stressful. The middle is what will try to take us out if we're not careful. So in this season, what I want you to do is what I'm doing. I'm managing the middle. I'm recognizing my feelings. I realize that my feelings are not fact. They're real, because I cannot diminish how I feel. They're real, but they're not factual. They're not going to take me out. I just got to keep going. And if I don't quit, I'm going to be on the other side. And what am I learning from this season? Like, for me, I'm learning really how to seek the face of God. I'm learning really how to apply the scriptures and the stories in the Bible to my life. I'm learning how to speak to myself in the valley and the mountaintop simultaneously, because I still have some good things that are happening. So I'm having to celebrate and calibrate at the same time. And I'm also learning to push through. That even in this moment, when I don't want to do it, I have to do it. It is discipline over motivation. Some may say discipline is a dirty word, but for me, it's the driver to my success. So until next time, keep thinking up, keep winning, keep believing. Because what I know is that you are one thought away from greatness. I'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Think Your Way Up with Dr. Jinneh. I hope today's episode challenged your thinking, shifted your perspective, and gave you the tools to disrupt your mental chatter and step boldly into your greatness. Remember, friend, you're just one thought away from the clarity, confidence, and transformation you deserve. If you love today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs this message. Let's spread the power of thinking up together. Until next time, keep challenging your limits, evicting your doubts, and creating the life and business you were meant to live. You've got this. I believe in you. See you next week on Think Your Way Up with Dr. Jinneh.